and welcome to this panel. It should be very well performed at minimum. My name is Garrett. All you're going to hear from me is questions and very little input. We're hoping to hear from our panel of experts lots. I'm a novelist, and I also do a lot of voice acting, and I did a lot of stage work, and that's all you need to know about me for now. All right. What I'd love to do is have, I'm going to ask for a cerebral thing. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves real quick, and just in about a 2 or 3 minute introduction, introduce yourself, say why you're on this panel. What is it that makes you able to speak to this? And maybe a couple an experience or two as well. And actually, could we just go in alphabetical order by first name? So that, Anne, if you don't mind going first.
That would be me. Okay. I think probably the reason I'm on this panel is because I'm a clinical psychologist with a Jungian bent. I'm actually certified as a Jungian analyst, but something I did for 25 years in a number of different venues. I started writing books back in 2009 when I was still running mental health programs here in California. And around about 2012, I retired, and I've written full-time ever since then. I write urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy, paranormal romance, science fiction romance. I have kind of lost count, 92 books out, I think. And when I started, I had an agent, I had publishers. That was in 2009, 2010. By the time 2013 rolled around, I decided I knew enough and I had enough contacts in the business that I could do it myself. So I've been full indie since the front end of 2015. That's when I got all my rights back. It's been an interesting journey. I still do a little bit of psychology because I live very remotely, and there are hardly any licensed therapists in the little tiny town where I live. So, I mean, that's basically me.
Awesome. Thank you. Ben, you're
up. So I am a Dandini storyteller and voice actor. So I do a lot of live performance and not so live. And then just have a lot of experience in various other acting, a lot of improv and things like that. So
awesome. Thank you. Kaylee, I think you're next.
So I'm Kaylee Casutt. I've been performing on the stage for several years. I'm in an improv troupe, so I love improving, including live action role play. I love to just improvise it and just go for that. So I am also a writer. I love writing. I love studying like historical things and stuff. And as a job, I work as a behavior therapist, and so I work with kids and stuff, and working on their behaviors and So that's everything about me.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kaylee. Scarlett.
Hey, I'm Scarlett Dock. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and part of the reason why I'm on this panel as well. Do a lot of therapy with kids focusing on anxiety, social anxiety, and have actually dealt with that myself. So overcoming speaking in front of people, talking in front of people has been a big part of my development as well.
Very nice. Thank you, panelists. I appreciate that. We have quite a lineup here. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I'm going to start off with kind of a simple question to get the juices flowing. And feel free to just kind of freewheel. I'll do my best to, if Ben goes nuts or if Scarlett goes nuts, we'll try to comment. But feel free to just, be free with your exchange of thoughts and ideas. But to kick things off, have you ever suffered from stage fright? And if you have, would you mind sharing what it feels like for you? I think maybe our audience might like to know that they're not alone and how they experience stage fright. Anybody?
So I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And I'd be surprised if anybody on this panel said no. It's performing didn't come about because I never was afraid. However, it's been something that has helped me deal with that a lot. And like you said, you asked about how it feels. It definitely a lot of nervousness. When I first started performing, it would start like a day or so before I was performing. Every time I'd think about, oh no, I'm performing tomorrow, but it's as I've gone, it's gotten a lot better. Usually it's only the first, I mean, even now I deal with it the first 10 minutes before I go out. I'll have to stop and do a couple exercises to just get warmed up and ready to go.
Awesome.
I will admit, I had stage fright. Oh, even just getting into a panel. Starting out with being a panelist, it's like, okay, and it's nerve wracking. This is the third panel I've had L2E, and the first one I had yesterday, and it was like so nerve wracking. Like my hands were getting all clammy and stuff. I mean, it's a thing even now. So.
Okay.
Probably I don't tend to be nervous, but the most nervous I've been was back when I got licensed back in the dark ages. You actually had to show up for your orals. They don't make you do that anymore. And I think it's a mistake. I think you should lay eyes on prospective mental health people. Anyway, that was really nerve-wracking. I mean, I was as prepared as I could possibly be. I had passed the writtens 3 months before, but I went into it knowing that there was a 50% fail rate, and I was damned if I was going to have to do it again. And I passed by the skin of my teeth. Passing was 75, and I think I got 78. I'm sure I stuttered and stammered, and there was a lot of stuff that I knew, but I couldn't, lay my little neurons on it when I needed the information. Right. I get it. The whole sweaty palm and the
the lump in your
knot
throat.
in your throat.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Does it feel like an imposter syndrome, that kind of stage fright sometimes? Like,
yes, 100%.
Okay.
Nice. Sure. I didn't feel like a psychologist till I've been practicing for maybe 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Scarlett, do you have some thoughts on what having had stage fright and how it feels?
Yeah. I mean, I dealt with it starting in like high school because I was in choir and I took piano, and all of those require performances, and we'd have auditions for parts and stuff. And I remember, getting up there to sing a part and just, my knees start shaking and my heart starts racing and I can't catch my breath. And, oh, wait a minute, I was supposed to start 2 measures ago. Oh, shoot.
Oh, dear.
And gradually, like for a little while, I just kind of avoided doing that stuff. But then got some good advice from some good people and realized, going out and doing that and being nervous and getting through it actually made it a whole lot better. And so the more that I've gone out and done things where I have to get up in front of people and speak or perform, it's been going a whole lot better.
Nice. Thank you. There's a lot of like dragon slaying, I guess. And keep slaying the dragons. That's good stuff. So since this is going to focus, I think that we're going to find ourselves giving viewers tips on how to overcome stage fright or imposter syndrome or those nerves and stuff. And I'm excited for that. But we do want to focus as much as we can on how performing really does improve health. So I'm going to ask the big question. Can you share a big area where performance has improved your health that might help the others? Anybody? First off,
I'd say
it enhances your self-confidence.
Mental health,
your ability to believe in yourself. And, it doesn't happen in big bites. It happens in little ones. So, I think that for people who are extremely nervous, talking in front of other people, I wouldn't start out with an hour lecture. I would start out with, 5 minutes. And, you can work your way through 5 minutes pretty readily. Anybody can. So I think you come out the other end, feeling, oh, yay, I did it. And success builds on itself.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I think that point about confidence is really key. That's probably the biggest benefit I've seen is it does increase self-confidence. And that relates to all other parts of your life, not just getting up in front of people, but also, fighting that imposter syndrome and feeling as though, hey, I do know what I'm talking about.
Okay. And I think Scarlett brings up a good point of the ability to really fight off other negative emotions, like learning to deal with that stage fright. Like I said, it still comes up. It's not a big deal anymore.
Okay.
Because I've learned a lot of great strategies for how to deal with that, and I've practiced them a lot. And I've been able to apply that to when I'm feeling something else that's very strong and hard in my life, but I've been able to be like, okay, let's work through some of my exercises and it just helps all around there.
Nice. Okay.
Well, and in the physical aspect, it's a workout, but you have fun with it. Like I don't like going to the gym. I don't like going to, like, in high school, going to PE and be like, you have to do this. I'm like, for what reason? I don't want to. But on the stage, I did so much stage combat and musical theater and dancing and running across and changing costumes. Costume changes is definitely a workout in itself. All these things is a workout. And so you are improving your body, your physical health being in theater because of all the different things you do, especially when you're having fun. Because then you just let it all out. And then you get to the end of the show going, I'm exhausted, but that was so much fun.
It sounds like could stage fright also be good cardio? Really fast, Maybe. I don't know. I haven't lost a whole lot of fat from stage fright. Well, that's good. I appreciate you guys sharing those thoughts. We're definitely going to dive into a little bit more of the physical and the mental health. But another kind of general question to see if we can keep connecting with our audiences. Would any of you or would all of you recommend that anybody actually perform? Would you encourage anyone to perform? If so, if not, why or why not?
Go ahead.
Yeah. The reason why I was I was reaching back through my memory banks. I when I started as a young therapist, we still had a state mental hospital system, and I did an internship at Stockton State Mental Hospital where we had some extremely ill patients. I mean, schizophrenics back when the only drugs we had were Thorazine and Mellaril. And we used to do community theater with them, and it was fun, and it they really got into it. So, and then they went back to being delusional, and it was fine.
So, what would you say it was about that performance that did improve their well-being or even mental health?
I think that they felt like they were doing what normal people do. We have the state mental hospital had television, and we used to run movies, and we used to do all kinds of arts and crafts and therapeutic intervention type stuff. And I think that just because they had a severe mental illness, it didn't mean that they weren't aware of how different they were from mainstream people. And I think when we put on theater projects and, the other patients from the other wards would come and watch, it really was validating for them.
Nice. That's awesome. So how about the rest of you? Would you encourage just anybody to perform?
I'll say yeah, absolutely. I don't think that all performance is for everybody.
Nice.
I think, you definitely have to find your performance. There are some people who, if you suffer from like extreme stage fright or anxiety, like Anne was talking about earlier, 5 minutes, just maybe public speaking. And when I say public speaking, maybe it's just a large group of friends and family.
Okay.
Start with where you can, but I would definitely recommend do some type of performance for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't think of a person or individual or situation where I'd say, nah, don't bother with that. I think it can be healthy and helpful for pretty much anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely with that too. I was just thinking, I knew this one kid who super shy, super reserved, would just kind of hide in the corner. He still performed. He actually got casted as a shy kid, but it put him on the stage. And all he really needed to do was just say his lines. He could just be himself. And it was amazing to see because every year he still participated in those plays. And after a course of 3 years, he became the main character and he had so much confidence. And it's amazing to see the transformation of someone who would never consider being on the stage and seeing how it changes. So I would say definitely yes.
Nice. Any other comments on that before we move into a specific health area? Okay. So you guys have touched on how this can be a confidence builder and how confidence can be such a valuable attribute to develop. Can we explore some other areas that performing can improve mental health? If you have any thoughts on that, I think we'd all love to hear those. How can performance truly improve mental health overall?
So
what is mental health? We need a working definition of mental health.
Yeah, would you define that? That'd be awesome since you seem qualified for it. Go on, Ann, you got this.
I think can I punt to the psychiatrist?
Do it.
Well, okay, so if you want to think about mental health as a state of having positive feelings about yourself and,
Yes.
generally feeling appropriate anxiety. So, when you walk across a snake in the path, you get anxious. Not so much when you walk up to a random person on the street.
Right.
Then I guess is that a good definition of mental health?
I like that. Would you add mindfulness to it as well? The ability to be mindful of about your kind of inner conversations?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I could see where performance
that feels
would...
very Gurdjieffian to me. George Gurdjieff was a Russian philosopher. No, okay. Yeah, he practiced mindfulness. He was kind of an early forerunner of the whole Zen thing. Yeah, he and Uspensky. There's a book, In Search of the Miraculous, by Uspensky that's worth picking up and looking at.
Okay.
So by mindfulness, you mean being aware of yourself and your surroundings and making a melange out of it. Yeah, I think that's very useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's something that naturally develops from performing. Like in improv, like Kaylee does, you kind of have to play off of the audience, play off of the other people that you're performing with, be mindful of what you're doing. It requires a lot of being aware of your surroundings and of yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition, I'd say, and this one goes in, I think, a lot more with acting, but empathy, just in general, acting develops a lot of that because there is a lot of almost living through other experiences, and just imagining yourself there. There's a very big part of just like you've got to be there in that situation in order to be able to portray that to the audience.
Okay. Very cool.
Well, I was gonna,
Najin, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was kind of thinking something similar to what Ben was saying. Sometimes when you're performing someone else, like for example, the character is super confident, then you have to be confident. And if the character is super observant, then you have to be observant. You become that character, and in a sense, once the show is over, that little bit of character kind of becomes part of you.
It's cool.
I was going to say Nijinsky, a very famous dancer, who was almost like he defied gravity with some of his moves. They asked him once, how do you do that? And he said, "Oh, it's very simple. I'm in my body, but I'm also in the first row watching myself."
That's quite a mental gymnastic. Wow. Huh. Okay. So, any other comments on how performing can improve the mental health? We've talked about, appropriate anxiety, and being aware of ourselves and having good thoughts about ourselves. I like that turn of phrase, Scarlett. That's really good. Any other thoughts about how performing can actually improve mental health and improve maybe even our ability to improve our own mental health?
Do we want to touch on the performance curve? The other two mental health practitioners, I'm sure, know what it is. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
You perform best not when you're totally calm, but when you have a small amount of maybe not anxiety, but being up. And it's a U-shaped curve because when you get beyond a little part of being up, more and you're feeling like anxious and your heart's pounding, then it erodes your performance. But you do want to have a little bit of that, nervous energy cooking because it will improve your performance.
Really?
So, yeah, I'll say from an experience standpoint, I didn't know what you were talking about when you first started talking about it, but from an experience standpoint, that I experienced that. I don't, when I work through my stage fright that we talked about earlier, not all my exercises are to get rid of it. Some of them are to channel that into my performance.
Gives you energy? Yeah. Okay. So I mean, if you guys don't mind me making a quick comment, that's very interesting because if you can become aware of the fact that you have some nerves that are acting up and thus adrenaline is starting to course through your body, if you can become completely aware of that, that's actually happening, and then you can proactively take charge of the way it's running through you rather than it kind of doing whatever it wants to you. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds like a really good mental health skill, actually. Where you can understand, hey, this is happening. This is what I'm feeling. Now I'm going to try to channel it or change its direction or something. I think that's rather fascinating. Have you all had similar experiences to what Ben was talking about, where you channel it?
I find that mostly whenever I'm actually writing PowerPoints for presentations to like residents or fellows, and there's kind of the point before where I'm like, I don't really feel like doing this. And then it's like, oh man, I'm kind of stressed out because I have to do this, and figuring out how to channel that stress into, okay, I've got enough energy to sit down and, write up 65 slides over the next 4 hours and do all of this research and stuff. It kind of gives you that extra pushed to do things that are difficult, be
Nice.
it because they're boring or because they're hard or because they make you anxious.
Okay.
But yeah, being in that ideal zone is really where you want to be whenever you're performing.
Pretty cool.
I mean, even yesterday when I started with my first panel, it was just like, I was trying to find a classroom to do my panel in, and was my, just like I was mentioning, my hands were getting clammy. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to get into this. This is my first panel. Hopefully I've written all the questions, because I'm so nervous. But the thing is that because I had, because I was nervous, I did write down all the questions. I had prepared myself so that when I did sit down, I was able to take a deep breath, and I thought, okay, I'm here. I have my computer. I was able to get into the panel, and it turned out really good. But that little amount of being nervous, of getting clammy hands, kind of pushed me to fight the dragon, as we mentioned earlier, just
Nice.
to be there and to really be driven by that. So
Okay. So just a little follow-up question is, what kind of benefit do performers get from maybe bombing sometime and then coming back around and trying again? What kind of benefit is there for that, from picking yourself up from a bomb?
Well, you teach yourself that you can do this and that bombing actually isn't quite so bad. It's not the end of the world. It feels like it is,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's not. And just because you bomb doesn't mean you can't get back up there and go do this again. Bombing, once it happens, becomes a lot less scary, I think.
Okay.
well, and think of what you learned from bombing it. What kind of things happened that made that happen, and what can you do to improve it when you go again?
Nice. So like you can get analytical and maybe be able to be honestly self-critical.
You can generalize that to any aspect of being human.
Right.
Somebody famous whose name is escaping me basically said that if you're in order to get any good ideas, you have to get a lot of ideas. Think about it. So, I mean, what that means definitionally is a lot of those ideas that weren't so hot are places where you bombed out. But, if you would have given up and wouldn't have kept trying, then you wouldn't have come up with a really good idea. So
I think that's a very important principle of life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, even with that, I'd push back a little bit on the maybe bombing, because if you're going to perform a lot, you're going to bomb.
For sure.
But like Scarlett was saying, the great thing is when you get out on the other side, you've bombed and you can see it's okay. The world did not end.
Yeah.
And everything's still okay. I still can go out and perform some more, even though I bombed this last one.
Yeah. Like Calvin and Hobbes, Calvin's dad, like he would probably comment, "It's building character."
Yes.
Sorry, and it looked like you were going to say something.
Well, writing books is like that.
Right.
I still remember back years ago when I got my first lukewarm review and then my first really awful review. And I mean, I'm kind of cerebral, and I thought about it, and it's like, okay, I wasn't the right psychologist for everyone. How could I be? I used to tell people, that the first session or two, or it's getting to know you and seeing if we're a good fit. And, if we happen not to be, I will give you referral to colleagues, yada, yada. Well, okay, so I'm not the right therapist for everyone. I'm also not the right author for everyone. And for me to assume that I should be is absurd. So, 10, 12 years and, tens of thousands of reviews later, some of them are good, some of them aren't, I don't read them anymore. That's a terrible thing to admit.
Well,
But
No, it's not.
I'm told that's a healthy thing to do, is just stay away, but I don't follow that advice at all. I've read every review I've ever gotten. For authors who really are a little fragile sometimes, maybe, who seek validation, those hard reviews are harsh. So kind of just want to make sure we cover something in thoroughly here, because maybe some folks in the audience are like, well, I want to convince somebody that they should perform or that I should perform. You talked, I think, let's see, Kaylee may have talked about running around and doing sword fighting and stuff like that. That was a good physical health thing. Are there other physical health benefits in performing that we haven't discussed yet?
I think it's a great workout for your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems.
Can you tell us
Kinda
what those
get
are? What?
Oh, so your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight system. It's the system that goes off whenever you run into a bear, or in some people's case, you run into another human being
Right.
that you don't know.
Right.
And then the parasympathetic is your rest and digest. It's the system that kind of like takes care of basic functions, and they're constantly they're like constantly antagonizing each other. But
interesting. That's interesting. So like they're like at odds with each other sometimes?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because whenever you run into a bear. Oh, go ahead.
As long as you brought it up, I want to talk about the sympathetic nervous system, because the way it's set up is absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
There's ganglia all up and down your spinal column. So if fight or flight comes in on one level, it immediately, like a fire alarm, moves up and down. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And sorry, I just hit my desk, and that's not
okay.
very steady.
So with those things at odds, how does performing make that kind of good for us?
So performing, I think, for most people, stimulates that sympathetic response. It makes you nervous. It kind of, for some people, throws you a little bit too far into the fight or flight response. And mindfulness and the exercises that you do to kind of bring yourself back helps train you to balance those two. Because mindfulness exercises, a lot of them are focused on stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system that kind of counters the sympathetic. And so it's good in a mental health sense. It's also good in a physical sense for strengthening that balance, bringing it more into line.
Nice. Yeah, maybe reduce stress headaches.
Yes.
And I'll say, in addition, especially, I don't know everybody else, but like for me, control of my body. There's a lot, especially in storytelling, where I have to portray some sort of something, and I know the idea that I want to get across to somebody, and being able to control what the big bear coming across, it just there's a lot of nuance to the way I move that you get to practice that, and so just some more control over how you're moving.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I was just thinking something similar to what Ben was saying, but a very specific thing that happened for me personally. I didn't realize until I had a role where I was like school dropout. I was needed to be all like rebellious and confident and stuff, and my walk was not confident. I walked with my toes first. It was kind of, but that was just how I had been walking before, and but I thought, hold on. The school dropout doesn't walk with their toes first. And so I spent weeks trying to walk heel to toe and walking with that confidence. And even after that show was over, I continued to walk like that. It became a health benefit to me because, first off, it's not very good for your feet to be walking toe first anyway. And that's just a really minor example of something that helped me personally for a physical aspect of that.
I love that. My first lead role was in a melodrama, and I'm a fairly shy human sometimes too. So I had to be taught. The coach had to tell me, "No, Jared, come on, stomp when you come in that door. You need to stomp like John Wayne, man. Roll those shoulders back." It took me, I think, a week or two to finally figure it out. It's pretty funny. Well, I appreciate that input there. I want to get into a little bit of maybe some tips and tricks, and maybe even some exercises that you use to overcome stage fright and even to channel it. And I'm going to make you really specific, if you don't mind, and a teeny bit personal. I have a bunch of kids. We got 7. One of them has a lovely, lovely voice. It's one of our daughters, and she sings. She's an amazing. She like understands music like a second, almost like a native language, really. But when she performs in front of people, we're at 4 performances in a row now. That somewhere, maybe a minute or 2 in, something catches in her throat, and she it's a bit of a hiccup or cough in the middle of the song, and it's just devastating her. And so what challenge or what exercises might you recommend in that kind of situation or other situations to channel that nervous energy into a better performance?
Well, breathing is really important. And when we get nervous, our breathing becomes very shallow. So just being aware of taking full breaths in and exhaling fully. When you do, you think, you're breathing in peace and tranquility and and you're breathing out angst and whatever labels you want to put on it. So breathing's important. I think that some kind of meditation or yoga practice on a regular basis is very, very useful because it teaches you to quiet your mind and your body.
That's good stuff.
Yep.
What else?
So I'll say one of the earliest things you can do to mitigate stage fright is practice. Just the act of practicing it first gets you to where you're used to being able to do it, and you can do it. But then there's also a measure of practicing in an almost live setting, where you'll call them dress rehearsals a lot, where it's like you don't stop, you just continue through as if it were treated as a live performance. Practicing that also helps in that helps your body to get more comfortable with just going and being able to continue through any simple mistakes and not have them being devastating, and just knowing that, you know what, this is okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, we talk in therapy a lot about exposure therapy for anxiety. And when it comes to performances, the whole idea behind it is not to go do the most nerve-wracking thing ever immediately, but to work up in small steps.
Okay.
So if singing in front of a single person is a little bit nerve-wracking, start there. And once you're comfortable with that, move up to a small group, and then move up to a larger group, and then move up to performing in front of a lot of people.
Nice.
That's kind of what I've had to do over the years is, start out by giving lectures to a small group of people, and then move up to a larger group, and then conferences. But starting off with a small group and kind of conquering that, it's kind of like moving through the different levels in a video game. You got to beat the small boss before you can beat the big boss.
Absolutely. Oh, she's a big time gamer too, so that's a simile I could share. That's awesome.
I like to talk it out.
Talk it out. What do you mean?
So I like to before I go on the stage, I like to just kind of go to someone, even to myself. I'll go in front of a mirror, whether it's in front of myself, in front of someone. I just want to talk it out, to just be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm super nervous, but I got this, kind of like a pep talk or whatever.
That's great.
And this is just a total personal thing, but I say a prayer. So, but yeah, that's definitely kind of some of the things that I do to like meditating and talking to other people. That's how I release. So
nice.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful. I think I remember one time, I think for my very first production in high school, one of the other cast members, I saw him off stage, side stage, leaning on the wall, but bouncing up and down really, really hard and really fast. I'm like, what are you doing, Nate? And he's like, man, I'm nervous. I'm trying to get the energy going. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I tried it and I felt really self-conscious. But then a few tries later, I felt a lot less self-conscious. Now my ritual for anybody who's interested in this is I actually listen to angry, loud music while stalking around wherever my backstage is, even if it's outside or some hallway, with my chest out, my shoulders back, and I just pound this music, and that seems to help me get my own energy where it needs to be.
And I think that's. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I think that's the thing is like, so we talked a lot about mitigating that, but you're listening to angry loud music. This is the channeling that the bouncing that's the channeling it. It's doing something to remember that the reason we're nervous about these is because we want them to go well.
Right.
And so you need to find a way to turn that nervousness into excitement.
Okay.
Because that's what's really going to drive you, because the nervousness, you're going to be worrying about everything that's going wrong. But if you can turn that nervousness into excitement, remember that, that this is something that you are excited for, because that is where the nervousness comes from.
And adrenaline's just trying to help, isn't it? It's
yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So remember Sesame Street? There's nobody exactly like you. We've all come up with, different things, probably things that we've used that work for us, but everybody's personality is different. And so I think no one knows you better than you do. And we each have to find a path that's viable for us. And, you can try things out, but, if you try something out that your best friend swears by and it doesn't work for you, that's not a personal failing on your part. It just means that their personality is structured differently than yours, and you need to find something that's going to work for you.
Excellent. We could probably keep going for a while. I think we should take some time to see if there are any questions from anybody who's listening in. Do we have any questions that we should address?
Yes, we do have questions.
All right.
The first one is from Candace, and she asks, I assume she, so if you aren't a singer, actor, comedian, etc., where would be a good place to begin performing?
Do karaoke.
That's awesome.
It's actually a great place to completely bomb because nobody cares. And it's readily available. As long as you have time on like a Friday or Saturday night, you can usually find a place that's got karaoke running.
Yeah.
Do they still have Toastmasters?
Yeah, they still exist. Great idea.
Yep.
Salt Lake and or Provo both have a place called Heart and Soul Karaoke. It's Japanese style karaoke boxes. Those things are freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can't sing. Other quick thoughts on where to start?
Yeah, so this one's a really small one. You can start with just your family. I start out all my stories go to my kids. Nice. before they go to anyone else, and there are different family parties where people will tell different stories or whatever, but you can just find something small, a group of friends, something like that, where you just get a little bit of performance.
Could even do debate club in high school.
Yeah.
Even
Playing
customer
charades.
service.
Playing charades? Well, I'm sorry, what was that, Kaylee?
Customer service, like you're talking in front of people. If you have a job where you're like at a grocery store or a restaurant or something and you have to talk in front of people, that's practice. So I think customer service even for that is something.
Let's see if there are any more questions.
Yes, we have another one from Cadence. Sorry about that. And they
Cadence.
ask, what would you recommend to someone who has bombed in a public performance and is now suffering stage fright based on a prior bad experience?
Panelists.
Recommend starting small.
Okay.
Start with something you feel comfortable with and go up from there, whether it's, like I said earlier, performing in front of just one person who you know well, or, a small group of family members or friends, and go from there.
So I'm guessing that some time has intervened between the performance that she wasn't happy with and now. And that's of course one of the problems, because the more time that goes by, it's like they say, you fall off a horse, you need to get back on. It's actually true, because the more time that goes by, the more opportunity you have for a lot of negative self-talk. I would say replace, every time you catch yourself with a negative self-talk gig, replace it with something positive.
That's great. I like that a lot. Why don't we see if we have any other questions before we have to end with a quick goodbye?
There's a puppy walking by outside.
Nice.
I am afraid that is the end of our group questions, though Cadence has one specifically for Kaylee. Is there an online option for meeting with others to engage in improv with them? After all, improv is, well, on the spot, but also benefits from practice.
That is an excellent question. I don't think I've ever thought of improv being virtual. But I'm part of Unstable Improv Troupe down in Spanish Fork. And I don't know. I feel like it would be... Maybe, I don't know if I have a full answer for that. Do some research. Maybe even start my own. Who knows?
Cool idea. We'd better let our panelists say goodbye, and maybe if you have a 10-second plug you can give, go for it. And let's just go alphabetically again. Anne?
My best piece of advice is believe in yourselves. And if you want to check out me and my books, AnnGimpel.com.
Nice.
I'd say try it. Just try it. And my website's under construction now, but it will be available again soon. benpistorius.com. And when live festivals start up again, you'll be able to see where I'm performing there.
I'm looking forward to it. That's awesome. Kaylee?
Cool. I'm Kaylee Casutt. I'm in improv and stuff. My friend just recommended that Comedy Sports in Provo actually broadcasts their improv shows once a week. So that is something you can watch virtually. You can follow me on Kaylee's Greater, not Kaylee, sorry, greaterdestiny.weebly.com. And
Awesome.
And
Scarlett, yeah.
And I'd just like to say again, echo Ben, go out and just try it. Just give it a shot. And if you fall, get back up and do it again. It's definitely worth it, and it's good for you. And I don't really have a website, and a lot of what I write is protected by HIPAA, so...
There we go. Well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Looks like our time's up.